Welcome back to the War Academy, where I get to talk duty to you. Fornication. Sorry. For an occasion, we're going to switch things up a bit, and this isn't a video about how to play as Chaos. This is a video on how to beat Chaos. Make sure you leave a comment on your favorite ways to counter Chaos. And let's get started. Now, the best unit that you can learn how to counter when you play against Chaos is the pilot himself. Learn how to get in his head, what he's going to be thinking, and how to react to that. So a good Chaos player is going to basically have what best I can describe as aggressively sneaky mindset.
I am very, very sneaky, sir.
Where he's going to be using terrain, hiding like crazy, and not come out of hiding until he's ready to jump something. This creates a lot of times where by the time you get the chance to deal with said unit, it's too late. So as far as Space Marines go, these are more on the glass cannon side compared to their Loyalist brothers. So Chaos units can pretty much, they can dish out a lot of damage. They don't take a hit so well. Their armor's still good because they're still a Space Marine, but they're pretty mundane and average as far as defenses. So their biggest defense being their Mark of Nurgle units cannot be shot when you get within, unless you're within 12 inches of them. That's incredibly annoying. So you always want to make sure that the ones that are Mark of Nurgle in his army, those can sometimes, you might dive them just to not be able to shoot them. And that sucks. That can cost you a game. So as far as comparing them to other armies, like most Chaos players tend to have a very proactive mindset. Where a lot of Marine players might think how they're going to deal with certain situations and what units are the best to deal with certain situations, Chaos think, how are the opponents going to deal with me? What makes a good Chaos player too is when they know when to crave the kill. Chaos have so much ability to juice something up, but they can only do it to certain units at a time. So knowing where the Hellbrute needs to be, when the right pack needs to be used, when it's not worth using a pack, knowing how much damage you're going to need, that's the key. Chaos do run the risk of overkilling their targets quite a bit, and spending stratagems just to overkill it more is how Chaos players can lose games.
God, do I need to take more Adderall, or am I taking too much Adderall?
And that's why it's all about knowing where you need your buffs. A good Chaos player knows exactly where each buff is needed and how much oomph is going to be needed and what's a reasonable kill versus what's something they're definitely not going to get the kill on, but need to either stall or try to hit again next turn. But that's probably not why you're here. You're probably here to learn how to counter Chaos. How do we kill these guys? And one of their biggest weaknesses to their army is the fact that they don't have very good MSU. Their units usually consist of a doubled up unit with a freaking hero, and a lot of armies don't do that. Chaos does it probably more than anybody, and you can really use this against them. They struggle hard into MSU. This can bite you in the ass though, so if you're not careful, there's that mission where you get the kill more and hold more. Chaos love that mission. That's just, they're probably the best army in the game at playing that mission. But otherwise, these big units can be screened out, and it means that they don't trade very effectively. So if they have a almost 300 point unit of freaking cultist mutants, and those things need to get 300 points worth of kills. So if they charge your eradicators, your aggressors, or blade guard, whatever it is you have, a 100-point unit, they got to do that 3 times just to basically break even. And some Chaos players, they'll get so determined, like, I need to kill this thing, take this thing, and then they kill the thing, and they're like, okay, I don't know what to do now. And that's where the Chaos player can lose. So he's got to follow up that kill with another kill on most of his units.
I didn't hear no bell.
Another thing that's funny about Chaos is sometimes you got to remind him, like, oh, you gotta roll your dark pack thing, see if you failed it, or your hazardous test, because I've seen times where a Forge Fiend goes to shoot, and then he rolls his overheat thing, rolls 2 1s, and he failed his dark pact. So like their dark pact still goes off, I believe, if they fail it, but that's a lot of damage. That Hellbrute just killed itself. The best mindset to have when you fight Chaos is they're going to attack you usually pretty aggressively, and they're going to set up those traps where they're going to jump out of terrain and just charge you. So you want to defend and then attack. Let them come to you, set them up into like overlapping fields of fire, get them in bad positions, counter charge them, and then you play really aggressively because they don't retaliate very well. It's kind of similar to how you play against orcs, just they're a little bit slower, not quite as aggressive, but they're going to go up, push that objective, be there fast, and like they bring all their hybrid units there that are jack of all trades, master of none, and it lets you set up really coordinated counterattacks to Chaos, but don't just try to go toe-to-toe with them at everything, because you will lose. One of the nice parts, too, about fighting against Chaos is overwhelming force is recommended. So the fact that they use these giant brick units and all their stuff so expensive, your risk of overkilling is much lower than a lot of other armies. Chances are, if you blow all your stratagems, just dump everything into that, you might not even kill them all. But since Chaos do like their infantry, like every dead dude is one less gun or one less melee weapon that's going to be hitting you. And that's pretty big deal. Another great way to fight as and against Chaos is to stop by our Discord. The Discord for War Academy, like this, it's War Academy. This is a place you go to learn stuff. So if you have any questions on how to fight something, how to do something, you want someone to review your list, stop on the link below. It's right down the comments. It'll take you 2 seconds and you'll probably get better at 40K just by joining this Discord. And if you want to practice some tabletop simulator, we'll show you how to set it up. We'll show you what you need, how to get the mods, and we'll play some games. Now we're going to talk about some of the best Chaos units. So we're going to go over each of the best units that they have in their codex, and then we're going to talk about how do we counter or beat these units. Starting with one I think we're going to start seeing get a lot more play as people start using it because it's freaking amazing, is the Celeste Demon Prince with Intoxicating Elixir. This guy does massive amounts of damage to single target entities. So he comes in and he has a rule where you roll a dice for each wound that he has remaining. On a 4+, he deals a mortal wound. He has 10 wounds starting, so that's 10 dice on a 4-up mortal wound, and he hasn't even freaking attacked you yet, and he has a damage 3 weapon. So it's 20 points to put the Intoxicating Elixir on him, but this is just every wound you can save is another chance to do this again, and he's too expensive to, like, even if he goes up and one-shot something, unless that was a huge target, he probably won't earn his cost back. To really make him worth it, he needs to do this twice to something. So just having a 5-up Feel No Pain with the Intoxicating Elixir really helps him use his ability twice. With Marcus Slanesh, he gets exploding 5s on his 3 damage weapon, and he's probably the best rapid ingress unit that Chaos has in their entire book. Like, rapid ingress him somewhere safe. He's got fly, he's got a huge move, then he charges. Worst case scenario, you have to hide somewhere even like more hidden. Slanesh can advance and charge, I think, with a stratagem, and this guy can get places, and there's a lot of times no way you have to defend against him because you can overwatch with flamers, but he's tough enough that he'll block off the flamers, and this dude's coming for someone. He's got their number. But we're not here to talk about why Chaos is good. We're here to talk about how to kill them, because Chaos players might like this video too, but you don't get any love because you worship the devil. So here's how you can beat this guy. For example, he's bad versus high toughness. He's not a very high strength. So anything toughness 9 or higher, and this dude's wounded on 5s. The number one way to counter this guy, though, is with fights first or fight on death. He needs to do those mortal wounds, and he's still going to do them to you. But if you fight first or fight on death, you might save another one of your unit. It's jumping on the grenade. So this is where you use that stratagem if you have a fight on death stratagem. Judiciary, he can be pretty sexy when it comes to fighting a Demon Prince. And like I kind of mentioned before, at 210 points, this guy can really struggle to earn his cost back. Even if he comes in, one shots your 190 point tank, like a 210 point unit to kill a 190 point unit of the opponent, unless it's a clutch, really important kill, it's not ideal. There are times too where sometimes you just gotta screen this guy. If you know where he's coming, if you know where he's gonna come from, like I can see he's gonna rapid ingress there or something, you can screen this dude out with your cheapest stuff.
Can I? Stewie, look, come on.
He doesn't like charging cheap things, and he doesn't like charging things that are bigger than him. So he's looking for that little middle ground thing, but when he finds it, he's gonna annihilate it. The next guy that can actually assist the Demon Prince, but usually tends to assist the ranged units, the Chaos Hellbrood. This is probably my number one target I go for first. When I see my opponent is feeling a Chaos Hellbrood, that needs to die, because this just spikes so much of the rest of the army's damage, and it's hard to yeah, it's too much of a variable. It needs to go. Part of what's just annoying about this guy is he's small and he's relatively easy to hide. So when you play 40k, you're going to get X amount of space that you can hide in your deployment zone, and you're trying to hide as much as you can. So having, a big Redemptor Dreadnought just takes up more room than these old school Hellbrute models. They're not that big. They're smaller than, about the size of most 5-man squads, so they can fit in the ruin completely hidden from sight until you're ready to be shot at. So one way that's actually decent to run him, you can drop his melee arm for a missile launcher, which I normally wouldn't recommend to do on paper, but because he tends to babysit the ranged units, the missile launcher can increase his survivability substantially. So even though the multi-melta seems juicier than the last cannon and missile launcher both have really long range, and you can sit really far back with the forge screen, with Predator, whatever you have, and give the double buff. I haven't quite mentioned that that's what he does. If you're not aware, he does a buff that lets the units around him crit on 5s. What this means is that when a unit with Mark of Nurgle goes and uses his Mark of Nurgle, instead of having sustained 6s, he gets sustained 5s, and then the Hellbrute allows him to also get the lethal version of it. And since the rule for Nurgle and Tzeentch, whichever one you use, says critical hit now on a 5+, it means the unit next to the Hellbrute gets lethal 5s and sustained 5s on whatever it's shooting with or meleeing with. It's obnoxious. There's not a lot of ways to counter this guy. He's got low health. That's his main weakness. When you hit him, you don't have to hit him very hard for him to go down. He's got a 2-up save, which when he's in cover has a 1-up save, and that's extremely annoying. But if you have guns that are AP4, Necron heavy destroyers and multi-meltas, that's really all he's relying on is his regular armor save, because a 1-up save is hard to pierce, but not so bad for AP4. But main thing is, like I mentioned, deal with this guy early. Do not let him, every turn he's alive, he's going to buff like 3 units around him and make them substantially stronger. But moving on, the other big combo that you're seeing a lot of people use is the Dark Commune plus the doubled up mutated Cultist. They're 245 points, and you get 35 wounds with a 5-up invuln, 6-up feel no pain. In addition, these guys can advance and charge and give themselves plus to hit and all these different buffs. It's a 1-time per game buff, but it lets them just go crazy mode. Most Chaos players prefer to throw these down a flank. They're not quite defensive enough to really send to the mid or like the kill zone objective. They're really good at just 245 points, great harassment, 35 wounds. Like, you're gonna have to deal with that. The Frenzy makes it so you can trick a lot of players and be like, Frenzied, I came in, I just whomped this unit. Now you're not as strong as you were anymore, but your opponent, he's going to therapy, showing the doctor on the doll where you touched him. And that doesn't sound good enough. They resurrect models. So, just tons of value here. You can different wounds in the squad. This is an amazing unit. So the best ways to beat these guys, anything that has access to rerolls. Rerolls are one of your most reliable things at culling a herd like this. Just getting those wounds through. The 5-up invuln's all they got. The 6-up feel no pain, that's it. So just getting them to take armor saves. That's how you're gonna get these guys gone quickly. So this is also gonna mean things like if your big tank comes out and it wants to shoot at this other unit, and he's got a storm bolter or some little shitty gun on him, make sure the shitty gun can see the cultists, because that gun is actually pretty good at killing the cultists, where you would have probably just wasted it shooting at the target your big guns are going for. And again, because of 245 points, these guys are vulnerable to screens. Like, you can block them. If these guys are forced to charge a 55-point scout squad or a 75-point this unit, those are ways that you're really going to stall that unit out, which is another turn to deal with them. So burst damage units are really effective against mutated cultists. So burst damage, I mean units that are hybrid, where they're going to come up, they're going to shoot you with some mediocre guns, and then they're going to charge you with some mediocre weapons. They're going to activate twice before it's the opponent's turn. He's going to get to attack you back, and then if the combat's still going on, combat will start with the player's turn it isn't on the next turn, and you'll get to hit him with your melee again. So yeah, these guys are dangerous, but just remember, beat them usually units one at a time. Don't let them kill multiple units, and you can deal with them. So next up, we have another more esoteric pick, which is the Predator Destructor. So Chaos don't deal with infantry that well. They have their chosen, their mutated cultists to just put a lot of dice into something, but they don't have a real good designated infantry killer, something to deal with Gravis and Marines. And the Predator Destructor at only 130 points. 130 points is cheap, and you get +1 AP whenever you shoot at infantry, and you're going to get a 6-shot autocannon that's damage 3. Normally it's AP 1, it'll be going to AP 2, damage 3. That wrecks Gravis. Plus you got 2 side spawns and heavy bolters and a Havoc launcher that actually has AP 1. So like overall, this thing got 10 multi-damage shots, not including the Havoc launcher. Like it's got decent output. It's got much more wounds than a Dreadnought does. It just has the one worse save, but overall it tends to be a lot tankier, and the things that have to shoot at it to kill it are usually really good guns of your opponent that now aren't going to be shooting at your Forge Fiend or something if they do go at the Predator. When you put this guy next to a Hellbrute, you give him Mark of Tzeentch, so he's got, you know, lethal 5s. He's next to the Hellbrute. Now he's got lethal 5s and sustain 5s. So the way sustain works math-wise is sustain 6 is +1 to hit. Sustain 5s is like the same thing as +2 to hit. So when you have a Predator, it's got its 10 shots and sustain 2, that's like 100% chance to hit, with 1/3 of them being lethal. But this guy doesn't deal with vehicles very well. Like, he's dedicated to killing infantry. If you brought a pure vehicle list, you're playing knights or something, like, this guy's gonna probably regret taking the Predator Destructor unless he gets real lucky on some armor saves that you roll. He also lacks an invuln save, so without that invuln save means, again, just like the Predator or the Dreadnought, like really high AP weapons will wreck this guy. Another downside to the Predator is he's big and fat, so he means he doesn't move very well and he doesn't hide very well.
Now that you've mastered driving the M808V, let's move on to some of the safety features.
No, wait, go back! Why are there 6 pedals if there are only 4 directions?
And if he decides he wants to hide his Predator, you know, opening turn, like, that's a lot of space that's now used up that could have been used for something else. I think that's probably one of the biggest weaknesses to this guy is the space he takes up. But he is good when you put him in a corner or put him as your last drop when you're out of room. 130 points isn't the end of the world if you lose that first turn. You know what makes 40k easier? Having these cool cards. I've printed out these little Magic Gathering cards. These have all the basic core stratagems, epic challenge, all the weird ones that you might not be used to yet. You just take one of your old Magic cards, put it over the top of a land, boom. You just print it out at one size bigger than the wallet choice on your ink printer. Don't do it on your 3D printer, but put it over the land, boom, and you have these awesome cards. So I'm giving these away on my Patreon. Sign up on my Patreon for just $1. You'll get the file, download it, print them out. You can lay your paper right on top of each other and cut all of them out at the same time. Done. If this video can get up to 20k views, I'll also make Chaos Stratagem ones too. Even if you don't care about the cards, imagine the good karma on your dice if you signed up from the Patreon for someone as poor as me. Patreon will get you access to one-on-one coaching. Like, I'll help you increase the quality of life of your hobby, whatever it is you need help with. So then we got the Predator's big brother, and that's the Vindicator. And this guy, again, he probably combos even better with the Hellbrute, because he has Blast on his giant Demolisher Cannon, which just wrecks everything, and it gets bonus to big squads. This is a dangerous gun, and with having exploding 5s, which brings it basically to 100% chance to hit, and then have a Hellbrute near it to give it lethal 5s as well, like, hyper dangerous. It's a big model. He's even got this big shovel thing, like, he's rocking the BDE. Toughness 11, 11 wounds, 2+ save. He's not something you can just kill willy-nilly. He can go right into melee. He can shoot into melee. Even though he has a blast weapon, he gets up in your face. He might even tank shock you. However, he is vulnerable to last cannons, other high AP weapons. You know, if you can get a last cannon ignoring cover or something, like that can wreck a Vindicator's day real quick. If you can counter that 2-up save, that's what really makes him annoying, is the 2-up save. He's got the defenses of the Dreadnought with the defenses of the Predator. Rerolling wounds is big because a lot of times you just can't afford to spend all your last cannons into this thing. But when you wound something on 5s, but have reroll wounds, that's about the same as wounding it on a 3.5. So it's better than wounding on a 4. So if you had +1 to wound versus reroll wounds, and you're going to wound something on 5s, instead of going to 4s, like the reroll wounds will usually produce better results. The other thing that Chaos players like to do with this thing, because it can shoot in melee, and that's a special rule, a lot of Chaos players feel that means that they have to use it, and that means they might overextend with it. If they push it too far forward, it's not hard to kill anything that overextends. It's hard to kill it when it's in all of its little Chaos bunch, but try to get it to overextend, maybe bait it, leave some bait on a hook for it, get it to push out, then kill it.
Phew, bringing that trash in here. This is my house.
So in my opinion, the coolest part about playing Chaos Space Marines is the Chosen spam. Like, Chosen spam just got bolt guns and basic guns led by a leader. Like, it feels very 40k. So at 295 points, you can get 10 Chosen with the Chaos Lord, and the Chaos Lord is basically there to give him reroll hits and reroll wounds for free, since he is going to turn a stratagem to 0 CP. People like to spam this, and like some people take 30 Chosen with 3 Chaos Lords and then use that stratagem 3 times. As you're pushing up the battlefield, so that first round's like, oh, I'm probably not going to be able to shoot anything, or I'm having to hide or whatever. They can just use their armor contempt for free. So the Chaos armor contempt costs 2 CP, so you can just change it to 0. So between reroll hits and wounds, they get devastating wounds on their combi weapons. They get dark pack. This lets them go toe to toe with almost anything. These things can actually go and fight something like a Tyranid assimilator. This can fight, enemy infantry. This can fight enemy terminators. There's about nothing in the game that these guys won't reliably do. They won't just go in and get wrecked most of the time. Part of that is because the whole squad itself has 35 freaking wounds with their 3-up save. Like, it's a lot of times more harder to kill than those mutated cultists. They definitely hurt more. So the normal way that you'd equip these guys is going to be 2 of them with a power fist and a plasma pistol, 2 of them with dual wielding weapons and a plasma pistol, 4 of them with a combi bolter, and 2 of them with just the plain bolter. They're the ones you pull first, or the ones that throw grenades. You can also put these guys in a Rhino or a Land Raider, get that moving cover with them, help protect them. If you run a more vehicle Chaos army, having them in a Rhino works a lot better. And like, some people will do a Chaos Lord and 5 Chosen with a Chaos Lord and 5 Chosen and throw both of them in a Rhino. But Rhino or not, these guys are fast.
I'm fast as fuck, boy.
They can advance and charge, advance and shoot, fall back and charge, fall back and shoot.
Still fast as fuck, boy.
Like, versatile as hell. These things are the real tactical Marines. And this is one of those units too that can reroll failed packs. So it's like when you're playing against them, it's like, haha, you failed the pack. You're like, oh, I get to and you're just, yeah. Bleh. And we were kind of talking about burst damage before. This is one of the best burst damage units in the game.
I don't think you have any idea how fast I really am.
They don't get their reroll hits and wounds for free on the shooting and the melee, which is good for us non-Chaos players. But they're going to shoot you, it's going to hurt, and then they're going to charge you, and it's going to hurt even more. But there is ways to counter them. One of the funnier things about it, I think, is like toughness 4 is the new toughness 3. And these dudes are toughness 4, which makes like every gun in the game is good against them. A bolt gun is about as good as a bolt gun's going to get, unless it finds toughness 3. But it won't in Chaos too much. It means that if you got heavy bolters, it's good. If you got plasma guns, it's good. If you got everything's good against them. Like, these things are not a horrible idea. If you don't have a tank to shoot fucking last cannon at them. Like, they have 3 wounds. So autocannons, we're just talking about the autocannon on the Predator. Do you know how much Chosen hate Predators, like Predator Destructor type things, like +1 AP against them? That's not good. Those 6 shots from the autocannon, that's a bad day for to be a Chosen Marine. Another flaw with these guys is they're a squad of 11, so not only are you getting a good blast damage against them, but they're really hard to hide. So when a Chaos player goes to deploy his Chosen, a lot of times he's taking up a lot of his room, and you can kind of see that and know that where he's going to have to expose stuff. And sometimes you can get angles to him. We're going forward and to the right, lets it so you can see that back Chosen, and now you can actually kill a few of them. Precision weapons are pretty fun too, because killing the Chaos Lord, not only is it pretty good value, it makes a Chaos player pretty sad. I had a game recently where I had a Haruspex, the big Tyranid thing with the tongue, and like he just reached over and precisioned out the Chaos Lord, just swallowed him whole. And the look on that Chaos player, it was priceless. Kodak moment for sure. So when you attack these chosen, any damage you do, if you kill the model, like you weakened them permanently. That's less attacks coming. It's not like when you attack a vehicle and it's cool, I did half its health, it doesn't change it. It's still going to hit you on the same and still going to attack you the same. But when you kill these chosen, each dead model is less damage output of that unit. Next up, we have Obliterators. So these guys had a points hike. And the way points hikes works, guys, is just because something goes up in points or down in points doesn't make it good or bad. What that really does is it's not really balancing the game, it's balancing people spamming the said unit. So for example, if you love Tyranid Warriors and a squad of 3 Tyranid Warriors went up by 10 points and you're like, I like to use 3 squads of 6. Well, your list didn't just go up by 10 points, your list went up by 60 points, which might be close to the cost of the original said unit. Like then it hurts. So points cost reduces the ability to spam things, not just take them at all. So the number one thing that makes Obliterators so good is their shoot without line of sight once per game. That's perfect. If most indirect things could have just one time per game, it could be indirect. Like that's actually kind of fun, and it doesn't feel as dirty pool. So a lot of people like running these as a 4-man, and a 4-man's 340 points, which makes me go, And at 340 points, it makes me try to make the 2-man work, which the 2-man is a great rapid ingress unit. If you're not using the Demon Prince or something else, you can rapid ingress 2 Obliterators, give them their shoot out of line of sight thing. So you rapid ingress them somewhere really safe, shoot out of line of sight, and next turn you can just pop up.
Surprise, motherfucker.
And then continue to fight your ideal target or have the right gun against whatever target you need. Again, this is another unit that is really dangerous next to the Hellbrute. Hellbrute giving these guys lethal 5s, exploding 5s. A lot of people like to go Mark of Nurgle on these guys just because they're fragile. They don't have a lot of health and you don't want them to be shot at. So stopping people from shooting you unless they're close, like that's clutch. And that's what I see happen a lot. War Games Live is just one of the best YouTube channels for 40K, and I watch War Games Live the way people watch football games. And I see so many people just try to dive them. They move up, I'm gonna kill those, and then Mark of Nurgle, and they're like, well, shit. And here's a funny fact. You know that this Nurgle stratagem gives you -1 to hit, and then basically lone op, and then Death Guard has basically the same stratagem, but it's just -1 to hit and doesn't give the other side. So being a Chaos Space Marine Nurgle apparently gets you a better blessing than being a Death Guard at the moment. Yeah. So damage 5 is pretty rare, and damage 2 is kind of meh, as well as damage 3, because you're gonna have some drop off there. That's why finding the right weapon to deal with these guys is a little difficult. But the fact they only have 5 wounds, you don't have to have much go through, and sometimes you just gotta risk the overkill a little bit more, because these things need to die. They are very dangerous. But yeah, they have 340 points. That's 4 models with 5 wounds apiece, 20 wounds total, 340 points. That's expensive. But the Chaos player is usually going to know these things have a giant bullseye on their back, and the Mark of Nurgle is basically their oh shit button. What's difficult is when you have a choice, like I can shoot the Obliterate, but I can also shoot the Forge Fiend. Forge Fiend has 3 blast weapons that are D3 each. So if he shoots at your squad of 10, that's 3 D3 plus 6. This thing is nasty against everything. There's strength 10, AP 3, damage 3. It's one of the juiciest weapons in the game. Damage 3 has been, for me, the sweet spot of 10th edition. There's so many dangerous things that have 3 health and multiples of 3, and a lot of things have odd number wounds now, and it's just damage 3 is a very good thing to have in any army. Shouldn't have to mention because he goes off next to a Hellbrute, just like everything, and Hellbrute has 1L, I know, but fuck, I'll change it right now. That's why that Hellbrute, but like, what do you shoot? You can shoot at Obliterators, you can shoot the Forge Fiend, you can shoot the Hellbrute. There isn't really a right answer there, folks. Usually this guy, though, is without the Hellbrute. He'll be rocking probably Mark of Tzeentch He's only strength 10, and that means if he wants to go for some of the big juicy targets, the lethal 5s can really help him out. So how this guy likes to play, again, he takes up a lot of space, but he'll hide, and then he likes to poke his nose out and then nose snipe you from really far away. He does struggle to toughness 11 though, so you know, Predator's toughness 11, like there's a lot of toughness 11 things out there that make him wound on 5s. He wants to eat Gravis all day, and if you can find a toughness 5 model with 3 wounds, like that's jackpot for him, especially if it's a squad of them. Because his weapons are blast, he can't shoot these weapons into melee. You can use this to hide from him and also to kind of lock him up. You can just, you know, peck him down. He's got hazardous if he wants the dev wounds on his weapon. So this is one of those things where a lot of times he can really hurt himself. And in a 5-turn game, the odds of him killing himself are not that bad at some point throughout the game. He got a points increase. He's 180 points now. That's expensive. And he just basically has Predator stats. He's got a demon save, but you know, he's toughness 11, I believe, and I think 11 or 12 wounds. So it's not like he's hard to kill. There's not a lot of things that the Forge Fiend can shoot at that's gonna get him his point cost back immediately. That's why dealing with him early is a good way to just put the Chaos player behind on point, like the trade game, right from the get-go. Now we're moving on to the best Chaos allies, and the best Chaos ally, which someone wants to argue this, Nurglings are the best Chaos ally. The Chaos Demon book sucks. I'm sorry, it's awful. There's not much you can do with it besides play off the fact that no one knows what it is you're doing because nobody plays you. The Nurglings, however, are the best thing in the Codex. These might be the best action monkeys in the game. With their deep strike, 35 points, they're not that squishy. They're amazing, and they're so cheap that they're almost never worth killing. Unless you know your opponent's about to do more victory points on secondaries, these things aren't really worth going for. Because they're not worth going for, that makes them such a good screen. Like if you have your Brutalis Dreadnought or your Wraith Lord or your Avatar, whatever have you, Mazrog's coming up and he gets screened by Nurgling, that's a sad panda. So Chaos Space Marines tend to have low unit counts in their army, and having access to a 35-point unit just to bump up their unit total is great in itself. We also can't deny that Nurglings are one of the coolest things in the game, and how boring would 40k be without Nurglings? To beat these guys though, like if you're really struggling into them, you know, cheap MSU units, using your own action monkeys to kill the Nurglings. If you guys remember in 9th edition, armies that were really good at action, a lot of times it became like, whose action monkey was not as crappy? Because if my action monkey could actually contribute to the game too, that's what made a lot of older action monkeys good. And having, you know, if you have your Scions come in and they can actually deal with these Nurglings, that's a really good value because you're taking them to do actions, and if they kill anything at all, like that's amazing. These guys don't show up till turn 2, and they're going to show up and do their thing. So you kind of got to look at what your opponent's drawn and see, like, if he took fixed objectives, these things probably have to die immediately because this is how he's getting his fixed objectives. If he's randomly drawing, you kind of look where they are. If they were going for behind enemy lines, you know, they could get scans. There's a lot of, then they need to go. But if they're coming up the middle or hanging around kind of the mid board, it's a lot safer to leave them. But I say that, and then it probably won't be for you. So just be aware that you might have to take these things down immediately, so have that in mind at all times. Even though it's only a 35-point unit, just boxing yourself out, taking up more space, spreading out your infantry, you know, might have to give up some of your shots on your infantry to make sure that he can't get behind you. But the Chaos player is really relying on the Nurglings getting him points, and not letting them get into your deployment zone can really shut down his scoring potential. But you know what? I think it might be the most annoying unit in all 40k. This unit in a good player's hands can leave a new player more confused than a homeless man on house arrest. Pink horrors split like crazy, and it's super annoying because they don't move that fast. So you might push up from the objective and be like, I secured this objective, and there's some pink horrors that are 8 inches away from the objective. I'm gonna push my other unit and go start dealing with them. Then they die, and then they spawn around you, and then they creep to see. Now all of a sudden they have the objective. The spawning of these things are ridiculous, and they are so good at securing an objective. In my last video, we talked about the kill zone objective. You throw pink horrors on something, your odds that you're gonna hold that objective for at least 3 turns is very high. Going for pink horrors can lose people games. You need, like, these things, they're so, oh god, I hate it. So not only are they gonna spawn to try to take objectives from you, these things you can pull the casualties out to get away from you. So it's like as you smack it, it plays against you in the movement phase. And like when people say the game's won or lost in the movement phase, these things take that to the next level. But whether it's the kill zone objective, the harass objective, your secure objective, these lock down any point on the battlefield that you don't want the enemy in. There's armies that just don't even bring enough dice to deal with pink horrors. If you're watching this and you're like, oh, what do they do? They have a 4-up invuln, their toughness 3. When you kill one, they can split into 2 blues. So you kill 1 pink, splits into 2 blues. So if you killed 5 pinks, that could be, up to 10 blues that now have to deal with. And then the blues split into yellows. So like you kill the blue, it's still not done. And they just keep spawning, and then they move around the battlefield as they spawn, staying in coherency. And however, they do no damage. They tickle. Like, their strength 5, AP 1, hitting on 4s, not very good. If you give them -1 to hit, now they're hitting on 5s, they'll be lucky if they do a couple of wounds. As they downgrade into blues and yellows, they just get even worse. The main way you deal with these guys is to not deal with these guys. You don't want to tell your chaos player this, but usually if he puts 10 pink horrors on an objective, I'm just like, okay buddy, it's yours. I don't want it anymore. I know they're only toughness 3 with a 4-up invuln, but again, they're still toughness 3 with a 4-up invuln. And I cannot stress this enough, do not shoot at these guys if they're anywhere near an objective. You only can shoot at these guys if they're like either already on an objective or on their home. If they're already on an objective, you can shoot at them, but if they're off an objective, don't fall for it. That goes for melee too. Don't take the objective and like press on further. I'm gonna charge the pinks, because then they're just gonna take the objective from you. The pink horror is OC2. And speaking of just securing objectives, because, demons are pretty much all about the points, they have Celeste. Celeste has been seeing a lot more play lately. He's really good. It's honestly, I learned this from the captain of Team Poland in an interview on Art of War podcast, and he talked about how important resurrecting models are. And resurrecting models, if you put Celeste can resurrect when he dies. If you put him on an objective, so many people are using guns this edition, he's going to come back up, and there's going to be no more guns that can shoot at him, and he's still going to hold the objective. So you went out of your way to kill him, to try to, if you can't have that objective, then he shouldn't be able to either. And then he's just going to get back up.
Oh, you touched my tra-la-la.
So you pretty much have to do it with melee. But he's very good in melee, and he can also shoot really well too. He's tankier than a Dreadnought. He has a 4-up invuln and 9 wounds. So like, overall, he can usually survive better than a Dreadnought can. He can also deep strike naturally because he's a demon, so you can use him as an action monkey that can then, dive something and hit something with his damage 3 weapon. However, his guns are low AP, even though they are high damage, and you can box them out. Like, I think it's 2 models technically, but you can just not let him get to you. You can screen him out, charge him with chaff. There's ways to prevent him from getting. He's annoying. He's also not great into things bigger than him. This is the concept of all chaos. Chaos they're a bully faction. They don't like fighting things bigger than them. They like picking on things smaller than them. He's only toughness 6. So when I say he's tougher than a Dreadnought, he's not tougher. He has a 4-up invuln and more wounds and resurrects. But usually if you're trying to play the points game, make sure you kill him in melee, because then when he gets back up, you should still hold the objective. Next up, we have the Changeling. So the Changeling is a great model. If you're making a list and you're like, oh, I've got 55 points left, I don't know where to spend them, upgrading a Nurgling to a Changeling is not a bad idea. He's basically just upgraded action monkey. He's got anti-shooting shenanigans, so when you shoot at him, there's a chance that you can just lose your shooting phase on that unit altogether. It's rare, it only goes off on a 6, but he's still hard to deal with, and he makes your opponent not want to go for him because of the fact that they don't want to just waste their unit. He's got a decent gun, but with this guy's rules, like, he can flip games just by getting lucky. And that's why at an upgraded Nurgling, not only can he fit in tighter places than a Nurgling can, getting him in your opponent's deployment zone is super annoying. When you deal with this guy, just usually do it in melee. You can kill this thing in melee with just about anything. Your scout squad, your eliminators can hurt this dude. Like, you can also just deny him out. Anything you have to block, don't let him get in your lines. That's bad. Make him have to deep strike like towards the middle of the battlefield. He is only toughness 3 with 5 wounds. He's a guard leader guy, platoon commander. He's very, very fragile, but every time you shoot at him, there's a risk that it goes horribly for you. Then we got the best of the Chaos Knights edition, which is the War Dog Brigand. So by far the best of the War Dogs at 160 points. He's got a lot of DACA. He's got a big Gatling cannon, a Melt-a-Spear, and another weird gun. But yeah, he's lots of anti-infantry with a dash of anti-tank. So he's great for assisting high damage units like a Forge Fiend, because he can balance out the weapon. Like, Forge Fiend doesn't like going for 1 wound models or even 2 wound models, but this guy sure does. And he basically acts like, and normally I say, oh, put shooting units next to the Hellbrute. Well, this guy doesn't need no Hellbrute. He's his own dread, and he doesn't need marks either, so he can kind of go off on his own little adventure too. But he is anti-infantry that a lot of Chaos lists are lacking, which I'm not saying Chaos lack anti-infantry, it's just most anti-infantry that Chaos have is in melee. Downside to this guy is he needs to shoot at the closest target for his extra AP. His whole gimmick is that he's gonna shoot you a bunch of times with, like, I think it's a strength 6 AP 1 weapon. And when he shoots the closest target, he's got like the aggressor rule where he'll get +1 AP. And that's when this guy can get a little terrifying. He doesn't, however, have any melee weapons at all. Even though he looks like he might be able to step on you, he's not very good at stepping on you. Because he's a knight, he doesn't get an invuln in melee, so he's got a 5-up invuln against ranged attacks only, and he has really no way of fighting against anything big. So if you bring something, even your own dreadnought against him, if your dreadnought's got an arm, he should beat this guy, because he's not good at fighting anything higher than toughness 7. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to like and subscribe to avoid that bad juju on your dice. And Chaos players,
Let them out of your sex dungeon.